You're live.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Free Assange Vigil. My name is Steve Poikinen. I'm joined by my co-hosts Andrew Smith and Misty Winston. We are in our 84th consecutive week of these vigils, and that is just absolutely mind-blowing. We are joined this evening by Steve Cox, and really looking forward to that conversation. Before we get to that, let me run through the numbers as they stand on February 9th, 2021. Today marks 3,713 days of illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. 668 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold to the United Kingdom for a $4.2 billion IMF loan. It has been 34 days since District Judge Vanessa Baraitser, the concierge of the U.S. State Department, gave her January 6th rule denying bail for Julian Assange after ordering his release not 48 hours prior. Today is 1,337 days of incarceration for Reality Winner. On the plus side, it has been 329 days of freedom for Chelsea Manning and 84 days out of prison for Jeremy Hammond. He's in a halfway house. I really am trying to find out how long that's going to last and what the conditions are towards that, because again, the halfway house system, not the best place in the world that Jeremy could be. So we're hoping that like he can, navigate the pitfalls of what those places are set up to do. And come away unscathed. And with that, did we actually complete the GoFundMe? Is that up?
We did. It's not the most detailed and beautiful, but I put that paragraph up and launched it.
Because we're going back DC.
We're going back to Washington, D.C. Do you want to talk about that for a minute, Steve?
So last year, our friend Mark Lubers created a hashtag called Clovers for Assange, and it was a way to kind of rally support for Julian's situation. It was, the concept is that we would be donating any luck that we may have to Julian Assange. It grew into a way for WikiLeaks supporters to sort of identify each other in the social media space. So we would like to take that into 3 dimensions, and as the world we live in becomes more absurd, I believe that we're going to have to go to more absurd lengths in terms of protest. So that's what this is going to be. We don't really have anyone in power in the U.S. that is interested in hearing what we have to say. That was made perfectly clear today. We'll get into that when we go through the news. So our recourse is to rally as many people, like human beings, bodies on the ground, as possible in order to make the amount of pressure that we're putting on these monsters unavoidable. Not just unavoidable in terms of media coverage, not just unavoidable in terms of their cognizance of our presence, but to the point to where they cannot avoid hearing about it. That's where we need to be. We're hoping that this event, March 17th, Washington, D.C., helps kick that off. Anyone? And a dramatic pause, that means it's somebody's turn to jump in.
I'm trying to tweet the GoFundMe, homie. Just chill.
And I was waiting for a bit.
Yeah, you haven't even had an introduction yet.
You haven't even properly introduced him. So.
Misty.
Yes?
That's your job. This is your guest. It's your introduction.
Yeah, it's
true.
Okay.
Steve,
well, you did the booking, so I did.
Okay. Our guest tonight is Steve Cox. He's one of my favorite people on Twitter. I have a serious echo. Yes?
I don't. I hear it.
I hear it. It's bad.
I think it might be
somebody else talk, because that's annoying.
Do you hear it when we talk too?
No, just me. Oh, wait, It's gone now.
It was for a second.
It was
okay.
Steve.
I think it's okay.
Busted.
I think it's okay. Okay. So anyways.
Good. That was weird.
So Steve's one of my favorite people on Twitter. If you're not following him, you should be. He's also running for Congress, which we can get into a little bit. We're very excited to welcome Steve Cox to the show. Dude, thanks so much for being here. Seriously.
I'm proud to be here. This is a great opportunity actually to talk about some important stuff.
Yeah, that's what we try to do. Andrew keeps us on track sometimes.
I try.
Yeah. So what do you guys want to get into first? Do we want to get into some news, or should we talk to Steve about his campaign and everything that he's got going on?
We can start with this campaign.
Okay.
That's actually kind of where I wanted to start, because we had Tulsi Gabbard and Thomas Massey come together to introduce legislation demanding Julian be set free, Edward Snowden not be prosecuted, the Espionage Act be changed, and honestly gave, in that demand that Julian not be extradited, one of the best write-ups of his situation, like literally going through a timeline of events. So as someone running for office, I wanted to open up the floor to you to talk about your platform and kind of view of the world, but also the fact that we have no current congressional representatives except maybe Thomas Massey that's willing to stick his head out for something like this.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really scary place to be. And I don't know what all the machinations are, but like I try to tell people, when as much as I understand about the way that our government operates, and the way the people in power view rights, the rights of other people, it's not that surprising to see things going this route. But I live by the motto of that which can be destroyed by the truth should be. I really, really believe it. And it's absurd on its face that any person in any circumstance who reported a misdeed that somebody else did would be the one turned into a villain, while the other person that they exposed the misdeeds for go on about their lives like nothing's changed. Like when somebody actually does an awful thing, that's the person that should be busted. That's the person that should be punished or handled, blamed at least. But they blame the whistleblowers. They only charge whistleblowers. They don't charge the people that blew the whistle on. Those people never get charged with anything. And you can't have a society like that. That's insane. That's nonsense. It makes no sense at all. So like every single day that we don't see mainstream news coverage and everything else, I'm just kind of like, yeah, they have to all be controlled by some, system, entity, whatever, but something is controlling them, because this is such a huge story in every logical sense. And they just like ignore it and act like, and anytime Assange does come up, they talk about his, basically as a traitor or whatever. And it's just like, I'm not sure even Goebbels would have gotten away with stuff like that.
Yeah, that's my favorite one actually, because he's Australian. he's not even from this country, and he's somehow a traitor to our country, which is kind of bizarre.
It's not my place, man. I can't.
We actually had somebody slow down on the street in Denver when I was there for some International Human Rights Day events. And somebody slowed down on the street to like roll down their window. It's cold, and to yell out, "He's a traitor!" Like
the media told me to say this.
Yeah,
like you can't even retort at that point, But it's hilarious. You're like,
as far as I'm concerned, and I really do mean this, it sounds hyperbolic, but I really mean it. As far as I'm concerned, every elected official who doesn't do what they promised that they were going to do before they got into office, every single one of them, those people have subverted democracy to a huge degree, because we don't have any recourse in most cases when that sort of thing happens, like somebody promising $2,000 checks, if you just vote for these people in Georgia, and then it's 1,400 because we're going to count Trump's 600. So like Trump made the down payment on our 2,000. It's like you guys are.
And then we're going to means test it and give it to 40 million less people.
Assholes.
Yeah.
I'm just sad that there's no argument about stop the presses, like quit printing money. But that's a whole.
No, I do subscribe, at least at this point, as well as I understand it, which I've read a couple books and that's about it. is, the way modern monetary theory works, I think is actually an accurate way to talk about our economy, which means that because we're not on the gold standard, we have a fiat currency. And that means that without the gold standard, we could print as much as we want. And the value is set by the market. It's set by its buying power and what you can purchase, right? So you can keep printing it. It doesn't matter as long as you control inflation. And the primary way of controlling inflation is by raising taxes. So if we get to a point of full employment where our country is everybody is employed or paid, I guess would count, at the point that everybody has like a living wage coming in or whatever, then inflation could start to become a thing according to modern monetary theory, because people will have more money and therefore a higher demand for things that they want to buy. So in that case, then the government's job is to tax that money back to prevent the inflation. So that's how they find the balance, is through taxation to prevent the inflation. So they could literally print as much money as they want. That's really the truth of it. They could just print as much as they want, and it wouldn't really matter as long as it's all, because all of the debt that represents is all written in US dollars anyway. So if China or whatever country decided that they were going to, call us due on our bill, right? Their loans or whatever, the debt, we could literally just print a coin and ship it to them, because it's in US dollars. We could do whatever we want. So that's where I land on that. Is I think that there's a lot more the government is actually responsible for, that should be doing. And every time anybody brings up anything that's to benefit us, regular people, in the government, it's how are we going to pay for that? But they never ask that when it's the military bloating to almost $800 billion a year, messing around in other people's countries. And I mean, that just, it's a ridiculous thing. So I want the government here. I think the government has an important role to play, but I want the government to function, and I want it to be a truly representative one, like as was, supposedly intended, so that's kind of.
Yeah, well, they shoveled trillions of dollars to the richest people in the country with no debate. There was no questioning.
Well, they didn't even have time to read it. Like they couldn't debate it. They couldn't even read it.
They didn't even have. It's like this huge 5,000, and it's like a couple hours, and they're voting on it, and everybody voted for it. And they do the same thing with the Pentagon, and there's never any debate or discussion. But we can't even get $2,000 checks in the middle of a pandemic.
No, it's got to be $1,400. We're going to be fiscally responsible. And it's just like, shut up! Like, you guys are the least fiscally responsible people. Like. Anywhere, the people that run our government, the amount of money that they waste on stupid bullshit that doesn't really matter is insane. And if all they had to do is reprioritize the stupid bullshit money toward their actual populace, and we would be living a pretty good life in this country, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's nothing fiscally responsible about letting your population suffer. That's not.
But it's also the fiscal responsible thing is everybody is always talking about that debt, but I really don't think the debt actually matters. I think it's almost the reason why you want to tax the rich isn't so that you can pay for things. It's so that they won't be so rich, because very, very, very rich people can influence the government, and then the government can and do influence the government, and then the government does what they want, and it subverts our entire democracy, where the people themselves don't even have a choice in what they're doing, which is why I think it's important that I'm running for office as an independent to go about this. I think I can get in there. There's a lot of sentiment that's favorable toward independence nowadays. A lot of people are feeling that neither party really represents them. It's just that they usually side with one or the other because the other one's worse. But most people acknowledge that theirs is bad too. Their party's bad too. It's not as bad. That's what they say. And
everybody in the chat is very happy that you're an independent, because I was getting ready to bring that up because they were asking, please tell me he's not a Democrat. No. And then they were like, oh, okay, he's
but I think that's a real thing. And in my district, it's almost 50-50. And there's going to be some redistricting, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen because of the census. But it's a 50-50 district, so I have just as many when I'm out talking to people and stuff. I mean, more honestly, Republicans who actually see the sense in what I'm telling them about all the same stuff I'm just telling you guys, and they're just like, yeah, totally. I get more Republicans saying yeah than liberals. Like usually the liberals are like, eh. They get
Isn't
very
that
mad at
weird?
me. It's super weird.
We've noticed that too, just in terms of Assange. Like I've had more luck with the right than I have with the left.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's really bizarre. It's a very
Well, I think
thing.
it comes down to the level of propaganda that those groups are subjugated to, because
Yeah.
you have different flavors on the left and the right. Like the like hardcore CNN viewer has a whole different view, albeit equal militarily and in relation to the surveillance state. But then the person on the other side of the spectrum, they're like on different sides of the boxes screaming at each other.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I also think that especially during the Trump administration, liberals were so, for lack of a better word, I know it's a cliche word to use nowadays, but for lack of a better word, triggered, all the time by Donald Trump being in office. And it's like anytime you would talk to him, it's like you're stepping on their last nerve. It's gonna, like, something's gonna snap.
Yeah.
So I think that Republicans are a bit more relaxed about it during the last few years too. So that probably plays some role in how wound tight people are, and how much they'll allow themselves to be propagandized, because liberals that are super scared of Trump are going to be spending a lot more time watching CNN and MSNBC and stuff like that than conservatives are.
Well, conservatives just spent 5 years being told that they're working for Russia, just to have it change on a dime to, okay, they're domestic terrorists, go get their kids.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, they're obvious, like,
they're not
at
pumped.
least to me, way more open to a sensible solution.
Yeah.
Than someone that lives in liberal academia that just gets to work from home and smoke weed all day now instead of go to the office.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny how liberals, it seems like, legitimately have a view of Barack Obama like he was some socialist hero, and the Republicans have the same view, but ironically, like the Republicans say that, but they don't even really know what socialism is, so they don't so they just kind of like use it as a slur. But it's funny that I think that the liberals are the ones that actually mean it, that they really truly think that Barack Obama was some sort of a socialist hero, because he brought us all healthcare or whatever. I mean, I've run into plenty of these people, and they won't even admit that people are still uninsured with Obamacare. I've run into plenty of those types of people. I'm just like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, how do you
personality?
Right. It's just like with the QAnon person, right? How do you bridge that gap when you're like, okay, so they see some of the problems, and and that's good, and then all of a sudden something goes, I mean, how do you even? Because that's what it's like. They're like QAnon people, Blueanon people.
Yeah.
They believe the most ridiculous stuff, and even if you tell them right to their face, you're like, look, you can look it up anywhere. The internet exists. You can. This is they're just like, nope. It's just like, wow.
There was a dual psychological operation that was purported on the American people, and that was QAnon and Russiagate. It happened more or less at the same time. Russiagate got a little bit of a head start.
Yeah.
And that's only because of the Podesta emails.
Yeah.
But
thanks, Julian.
But it
exactly
successfully broke the brains of tens of millions of Americans.
Yeah.
To the point to where simple things like questioning the integrity of U.S. elections, which is something that, like, I have consistently done for over 20 years.
Yeah, this didn't just come up.
Yeah, has now become, oh, you love Donald Trump.
Yeah.
No.
You're a domestic terrorist, Steve.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
And I was
because I don't trust. Yeah. Because so you're saying that because I don't trust people who have a vested interest in doing the wrong thing to do. Like I just want to be able to see what's going on. And asking you to trust them on its face, the assumption is that they're not on our side and that they don't try to do the right thing. Like that's already the assumption, but that's exactly what they are. And we know that. So why would we spend any time trying to trust that they're going to do the right thing or they're going to make the right call, or, don't worry about how
political talking points dogma we have. And when that happens, when you transfer your faith from something spiritual to something like Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump or AOC or even Joe Biden, like
Liz Warren or Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, you're basically signing off on defending the absolute worst things that they are going to do simply because that's your deity.
And here's my opinion, and I wrote this on my website, but it sounds like something the religious right would have said, but what I say is that we need policies that are based on morals. We need moral policies, right? Morals and ethics. And that's very important. And then once we know what's morally and ethically correct, if somebody says, oh, it costs a lot of money, okay, so where do we find the money? Because this is a moral thing. This is an ethical thing. So we have to do this. So how do we find the money? That becomes the question, is where's the money come from, right? It's not just, well, how are you going to pay for that? Because people don't like their taxes. If you decide that it's morally correct, then you do it. You do it. And that's not our system. That morals do not play into any of this shit at all. Like Julian Assange should have never been put in prison in the first place. The fact that he even had to fear, much less actually go to prison, but actually had to fear reprisal from some of the largest governments on the planet, is scary stuff. Like that's really bad. We're in a bad spot.
Well, that's one of the
for
things,
that to even be true.
That fear is one of the things that I think people miss a lot, because it shouldn't be that everyone has to spend 668 days in a supermax Guantanamo Bay-esque prison with no heat. Like that shouldn't have to happen at all. But if someone's willing to do that to defend and expand our right to information, that should be defending, because
it's a hero. The guy's a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what baffles me too is that the and I know we talk about this all the time, but the amount of human rights abuses in this case, and the international laws that have been broken. I mean, his conversations with his lawyers were spied on. He's been subjected to psychological torture for 10 years. There are a million things about this case that should immediately have it thrown out the window. And instead, we have a Joe Biden administration that is now refusing to drop the appeal, and he's still in a supermax prison with no heat. They won't even give him his winter clothes. He has his window insulated with books, and he's basically in solitary confinement. He's unable to see his lawyers or his family. He can't participate in his own defense. Like, it's an absurd case. If you just look at it objectively, it's ridiculous that this has even been allowed to continue, let alone, it shouldn't have ever started. Like Kevin Gostola said, we shouldn't even be here.
Yeah, that's the point, is like, if we actually had a free press, if that was even remotely a true thing, despite the guarantee in the Constitution, this wouldn't be a thing. Like, this would not have been a thing. People would celebrate those whistleblowers when they blow whistles. And I know the journalists who get those emails or phone calls or however that goes down, that realize that they've got this big news that they get out there. I know that the journalists like that. I know that they do at that time, but it seems like those same journalists, if it's somebody else's scoop or whatever, they hate on it when somebody else is the one that gets the information out there, because their ultimate loyalty is to themselves and in the system, the way it's produced and the way that news is produced, there's no money in telling the truth. It's not profitable. So,
well, and in the case of Julian, they all used him to benefit themselves and to profit, and they still use his work to this day. But they all threw him under the bus.
Yeah, because And I mean, I don't know, but Operation Mockingbird, like I don't know if that's still going on, but it might as well be. But there are probably ties to people, big players in the media that are tied to intelligence agencies and stuff like that. I'm sure.
Oh, we know there are. What's the guy? Who's the guy? Help me think. Oh, God damn it.
I mean, I've heard rumors about all kinds of different
Ken
Delanian.
Yes. Thank you. He's 100%, like it's proven, he's 100% connected to intelligence agencies.
Yeah, I mean, well, they don't even have to hide it anymore. Now they actually just hire John Brennan as a contributor.
Yeah.
Like they're not even hiding. They're like, hey, check it out. It's our hero buddy from the CIA.
To give people an idea. To give people an idea as to whether or not Mockingbird stopped or just got renamed.
Yeah.
We found out in the public about Operation Mockingbird in 1975 with the Church Committee.
Yep.
6 years later.
It was
6 years later, William Casey, who was the director of the CIA, the newly appointed director of the CIA, because the previous director of the CIA was now vice president. William Casey said in 1981, again, 6 years after all of this came out, we will know our disinformation campaign is complete when nothing the American public believes is real. So
I read the authenticity of that. I read the whole story about how to authenticate that quote and everything.
Yeah.
That's a legit quote.
So that's 6 years after the Mockingbird was exposed. To think that in the 40 years that have gone on, that the CIA was no longer interested in maintaining an operational relationship with the media, it is beyond naive. It's intentionally being wrong.
And then on top of that, there's also like the 2012 or 2013 NDAA that Barack Obama signed that actually made it legal to propagandize Americans.
Yeah.
And then in 2016 NDAA, he actually created essentially a Department of Propaganda, as more or less a ministry of truth.
Yep. Yeah. And then following Russiagate, as he was leaving office, handing power to Trump, they went even a step further and created a fund to pay journalists for running stories.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I mean, so and it's crazy because the worst part is as a somewhat public person, because I've put myself in this position and I have to talk to people and everything else. But as a somewhat public person, I have to be careful because I am prone, have always been prone to like conspiracy theories. Like I'm like, ooh, that seems like that's probably true. So some of the most ridiculous stuff that at one point, even if it was just for 5 minutes, I'm like, that's probably true. And then 5 minutes later, maybe I'm like, wait a minute. But still my brain for like 5 minutes on some ridiculous stuff would probably believe it. So
I don't think that's a good thing. That you should like.
But I know that I have that tendency, so I try to always check myself when I I have these thoughts but the reality is I think that a lot of this stuff is straight up legit. I think that the misinformation and all that stuff is absolutely a thing. I think that those are more than anybody the people who actually run our government and our country, and they hide that through these intel committees and stuff like that in the House and the Senate, and act like this is your representation, people of the United States. These people are the ones watching over us. Therefore, you are watching over us, and try to make us feel all good. But then, like in 2014, the CIA hacks into the Senate Intel Committee's computers, right? And then they don't even get busted for it. Like everybody gets all mad for a minute.
On the floor of the Senate, we didn't do it. Literally looks him in the eyes and was like, nah.
And I'm like, I'm just like, dude. And then to have that die from the news so fast, like it's just, the whole thing is just really bonkers. Like I think that you almost have to intentionally, like you were saying, Steve, you almost have to have an intent of getting things wrong. You have to almost believe the absurd on purpose in order to believe some of the shit that they try to get us to believe.
I mean, as much as I'm tired of, or at least they've been overused references or analogies or, callbacks to Orwell. Where we're at right now is the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears.
That's exactly right.
Most essential command. We literally have people telling us, no, what you saw didn't happen. Here's what really happened. No, I wasn't there. I'm 600 miles away in a television studio, but my earpiece says this is the version of reality that you are now instructed to believe.
Jake Tapper blocked me on Twitter.
That's a good block there, buddy.
He unblocked me since, because I would always point it out and it always tag his thing. So if you ever, I don't know how his alerts are set up, but he actually blocked me, and I know when he did it, because he did it right after I pointed out that James Clapper was his source for all the Russiagate shit that he just kept getting wrong. That it was coming from James Clapper. And I pointed that out, and I posted a couple of screen grabs of what I thought could link the two of them together type of stuff. And he blocked me. So I'm like, I got you, you son of a bitch. I'm like, it was James Clapper. It was. Because otherwise, why would he block me? He did it right then. I pestered that guy all the time. He never blocked me. And then I point out that his source is James Clapper, and all of a sudden I get blocked. I'm like, okay.
They don't even, you're right though. They don't even try to hide it anymore. The mainstream media is pure state-run propaganda. Yeah. And I always ask people, how many times do they get to lie to you before your sense of skepticism kicks in? Like, it's not a bad thing. You should be questioning everything they tell you. They lie all the time.
There are probably times that the United States government tells the truth.
Yeah, I can think of one from just last week when Time Magazine came out with an article that said, hey, peasants, here's 2% of the story about how your betters took away your agency for your safety. They fortified.
Oh, fortified. That sounds positive.
Yes. Yeah. It's so nice of them.
That's a neat way of saying stole.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to just continue to fuel that counter-reinforcing propaganda narrative. Like, at the end of the day, because that's the thing that sucks, right? Like, you have the Russiagators, like Blue Anons, and then you have the Don 1 QAnons that are fighting each other, and we're literally sitting here like
stuck in the middle with you.
Yeah, we're over here like, hello guys, they're not the problem. Can we focus on the real problem here?
Yeah, please. It's on fire over here, guys. Yeah. The fire is over here. You're pouring water into a lake. The fire.
It's like there's a fire and they're arguing over which fire truck can put it out. And
totally.
Put it out, fuckers.
Well, some of them are standing there telling you that there's no fire.
Right.
Oh, yeah, some of them. For sure.
We had so we had an entire internet movement for 4 years saying, where you go one, you go all, while at the same time, the president of that movement was prosecuting someone to the point that they couldn't meet with their lawyers for 6 months, had absolutely no human rights. The CIA, while they were making those words on a message board, were literally wiretapping this guy to the point that they had to use a laser and a sticker on a mirror or a sticker on a window to be able to listen to what he was saying, because he had deployed counter surveillance tech. Like, it's literally the most dystopian story you can tell. And the internet that was supposed to be defending it literally ran off and played fairy tales and chased airplanes.
Well, and there were a significant portion of internet activists that pulled way back from WikiLeaks and pulled way back from Julian Assange by what I can probably easiest be described as like location bias. Like, if you're working in an office where everyone in your building believes the narrative that Julian Assange was secretly working with Russia in order to make sure that Donald Trump got to be president so that they could break a nuclear deal with Russia and heavily throw a bunch of troops around the border and change the headquarters of NATO to be in a more threatening
all the
position
stuff
to
that you would definitely do if you were working for Putin.
But if you're in that environment where all of your peers and your employers are running with this narrative, not only does it make you, if you are the type of individual that is influenced by that sort of thing, more hesitant to speak up about what you believe, but you could also by default just start pushing those narratives, and after a while it becomes your reality. Karl Rove told you in 2004, perception's reality and we write reality.
Yep, that's right. No, that's 100% right.
So I mean, but it's been hard because there's been a lot of like American members of Anonymous who have gone over to like mainstream talking points on a lot of issues, everything from election integrity to COVID to, you know, Russiagate. And it speaks to the power of narrative, but it also speaks to the power of peer pressure. And I would like to let everybody know that the space that we have carved out here in the internet, take advantage of that if you're feeling like you might be the only person in your community that has an inkling of what's going on. Like, this is, you know, so it's become a support network for disenfranchised activists.
Well, that's a good way to bridge to our idea for the St. Patrick's Day events too, because like always, you can't everyone.
Wait, Andrew, hang on. Can you? Somebody before I forget to do it. Somebody in the chat wanted Direct Democracy Now wanted me to ask Steve, and this is a very appropriate question given their name. Wanted me to ask if you support direct democracy, aka the people getting to vote on our own laws.
I do in many cases. The issue that I see there is all the stuff we were just talking about, how the press lies and how, you know, 99% of the people seem to believe it, 90% of the people, whatever the number is, that could be dangerous. You know, I think that direct democracy, like the way that I honestly think in an ideal world, and I don't know if, you know, if we'll ever get to the ideal, but that's always what I'm aiming for. Right. In an ideal world, I think that we would have legislators who actually are good at legislating and know things that the public may not know, you know, maybe have understandings, a broader understanding of things, you know, and can then act and do their job. But I don't, I mean, it hasn't, I don't know if it's ever actually been that, you know, so it's one of those like
hierarchy of preeminence and
preeminence.
In legal situations.
Yeah. Oh yeah. In legal situations. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Because like here in the state of Ohio, and this is on the idea of direct democracy, because it was something I was involved in when I was a political campaigner. There was a group that was working to remove the through ballot petition, so through direct democracy, the state's ability to supersede cities passing legislation. So like, for example, the Fight for 15, Cuyahoga County here in Ohio passed a $15 minimum wage. And the state of Ohio said you're not allowed to do that. And it happens with pipeline fights where a city will say, no, we don't want it. And the state and federal government say, yeah. So I think going at direct democracy from the perspective of we have to get rid of power institutions at higher levels.
I do. I agree with that. I agree with that. But I think you got to blow them up from the inside first. I think you got to get up in there with real people and you got to take them down because they're not going to give up any of this power, you know, voluntarily. You know what I mean? So you got to get in there first. And, you know, ultimately though, like, and this is going to sound a little arrogant, but whatever, like, you know, I'm running for Congress, so I'm not, I do believe in myself. Right. But I do think that like, there has to be, you know, there are some people who, you know, you hire a plumber because you don't know how to plumb, you know, do plumbing in your house and you have a plumbing problem. So you hire them and they fix it. You don't question how they do it or whatever. As long as you know that they're trying to fix it right and that they're working in your best interest in working on their pipes, then you should be able to trust that they're going to do their job and you don't need to be second guessing them or being crazy about it. But the way that it is the plumber isn't even working for us. right? The plumber is hired in, and he's working for somebody entirely different. And so you know, we have to question everything that our elected officials do. But I think that in an ideal world, we should get to a point where you know, this is what's stupid about it. All it takes is for the people in office to actually just do what's in the best interest of the people that they represent. That's it. That's the only requirement. We don't have to agree on whether it's Medicare for all or not. We could have that debate in Congress, right? We can have that debate. But we can't have it if your side has already been chosen because the lobbyists told you that this is your position. And so that's where you're going to be no matter what, right?
Well,
There's nothing there. You can't go anywhere with that.
That's what Force the Vote exposed absolutely beautifully.
Yes.
Like, regardless of stance on single payer healthcare, Force the Vote literally made these people that are pretending, right, that are like just puppets on a string,
right,
put the money where their mouth is, and all of them walked away from the table. Because it should have been Ocasio-Cortez and the squad that led people into the Capitol building to stop the vote against Nancy Pelosi until we had Medicare for all.
Yep.
That should have been their political tactic in 2021. But instead, we had feckless leaders that are only there for influence, money, and social media clicks that literally turned their back on their movement every chance they can get. It's literally trauma-based organizing at this point.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. I wanted to like, I mean, and you know, I don't dislike her, but I wanted to really like AOC. You know, I really did, and you know, she I don't think she's the enemy yet, but she's on that path. She's walking that way. She sees the light over there. She's like, you know, I kind of look good in red. So
Nico House and I worked super hard, like on a personal level, to get her elected.
Yeah,
like we were working with her campaign manager, who at the time was a New York Green Party member. Like it was just craziness. And then to literally have someone go from saying Palestine is an illegal occupation to being like, yeah, you know, the Jews are okay.
Yeah, we're cool. Yeah,
like, immediately.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing is like, I used to go to a church. I've always been an atheist, but I used to go to church because I ran into a church during my first campaign. They called themselves a progressive church. And I went to an event that they invited me to, and I loved the music that they sang. It was all about like inclusion and harmony and stuff. And, you know, I've read the Bible, and I have a genuine appreciation for that Jesus guy. I think he was a good dude. And if we did a lot of stuff like he did, probably things would be a lot better, you know? And I'm not I'm an atheist, but we went to, I went to this church, and I liked them so much that I started going to the church all the time. And those people, it turned out that they're not actually progressives. They're just liberals. So I ended up leaving when they refused to come to my campaign event after I was there a year, and I had like, you know, rebuilt their like all kinds of stuff, like completely fixed their church, and then that they wouldn't come to my campaign event because I wasn't a Democrat. So I was like, oh, okay. And the thing is like those people are well-meaning, but they are like they said, there was a guy there who flat out said, when AOC got elected, he says, give her a couple years. And I'm like, what? And this is a person who's okay with Nancy Pelosi and these types of people, right? So he was like, don't get your hopes up because we got her. Like, that's kind of what he was saying. And I'm like, we'll
without
see.
a doubt.
And then that's exactly what it was. I was like, oh.
I got so much hate in 2018 because I looked at her campaign. I looked at the very first stunt that she pulled when she got there. I looked at who she did that with.
Yeah.
And the whole time it was like, you're getting taken for a ride.
Yeah.
By a very shiny new object that is going to absorb your energy and time and resources and your misappropriated faith. And no, I'm really not an asshole for saying that. No,
Yeah.
I'm really not Satan, I promise. Just, I am starting to question if it's even really cynicism or just a clearer way of seeing the world that we look in. Thanks, psychedelics.
Yeah, psychedelics help, but
Yeah.
cynicism, I think, is a sliding scale. Like it depends on what the people actually believe and what reality is, and so I think reality is often the cynical it's the cynical point of view, and that's what honestly made me decide I had to run for office, was because I got sick of waiting for somebody that I could support, like, to come along. I'm like, oh, someday somebody who actually thinks about this stuff and whatever may come along, and I can get behind this person, whatever. And when I turned 40, I'm 43, almost 44 years old now. But when I had just turned 40 at the time in 17, I'm not going to do the math, but 20, I don't know what it was, 2017. But the point is, I was 39 or 40, and I was going to one of my motocross races that I shoot photographs at as my job. And it just hit me that I was like, man, if you're 40, like, how old are you going to be when this guy shows up? Is he going to be 50? Are you going to be 50? Are you going to be 60, 70? What if he doesn't show up? He or she, I mean, I'm just saying he as a general, but like, what if that person doesn't show up?
Sexist.
Well, yeah. Well, and my wife and daughter might argue that, but no. So, like, when is this person? What if they don't show up? And that was the thing. And I got scared. Like, it frightened me to think about that I would waste that much time waiting on some other asshole when I can be the asshole. I'm a plenty enough of an asshole that I could actually just do it. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
That actually reminds me of a Julian Assange quote when he said, I'm paraphrasing here, but you only get so many days, and if you're not fighting, then you just lost a day.
Yeah.
We can't wait around for other people to solve our problems. Like, we have to proactively do whatever we can. So,
no, and it terrified me, the thought of just like it. I was scared. Like, I was like, oh, I got like the chills, and I'm like, this is awful. It's like this really awful thing. Well, and now I have a daughter. Not to cut you off, but now I have a daughter, and that changes everything. She's 13 months old now, but like that, the way that you see the world and the importance in fixing things. I didn't think it would change much because I was already on the left politically, like I'm like, I already want the best for people, like, so, but having a daughter that I know is going to have to live in this world after I'm not here to help her or protect her. That's big motivation too.
Well,
100%.
So the whole thing of like, what are we waiting for? That was kind of what inspired action for Assange to become a thing. Like, Julian got arrested. I went to Washington, D.C. He got arrested on Wednesday or Thursday. I left Friday after work to go to D.C. to join the protests. Got there at 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, where's everybody at? Like, we're supposed to be here till he's free.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I got a brunch.
Right, and that was the realization, like, hey, like, we got some ground to catch up on. We got some work to do. So yeah. So I appreciate you having that mentality and running for office with it, because that's the all call that we've been putting out for 84 weeks is like, do something, like find something.
Yeah, but the thing is like the only reason I chose actually running for office instead of other things is because I know me. So I knew that I already had, because I'm an introvert and I'm always in my head. I'm always in there running shit around. And so I had felt like I had gotten to a point where I didn't necessarily know every piece of the puzzle, what was going on, but there were enough pieces that I could see what the picture was, right? When you have a few puzzle pieces missing, but that's a tiger, right? Right?
Yeah.
So like, that's kind of where I got to be, was like, I know the picture, and I've been filling in pieces since, but like, I know the picture, and I looked at what I can do and what I can't do, and I can write, I'm well spoken, like I'm, normally, but like, and I'm not afraid of crowds. I'm not afraid of speaking in front of large audiences. I'm not afraid of, I don't get nervous about, public exposure type things. So I just was like, well, I guess, and plus I'm from here. Like this is, I've lived here my whole life in the district. So, it's also my people, I feel like I understand them because I've been around them my whole life. So, that was the last part, but like that's the only reason I chose this. And there's been times when I wish I didn't, it's a pain in the ass. It's not easy. And it drives my wife crazy, and I can't imagine how much complaining my daughter's going to do. But once this COVID thing is at least somewhat under control, and we can actually campaign out in the streets and stuff like that.
7 years.
Well, if that's what it is, but I'm going to have I plan on having my daughter with me as I canvass houses and stuff, and like taking her with me because, I've had people since we had her, her name's Daphne, by the way, but, I've had people say to me like, oh, she's going to make you so proud. And I'm like, I'm worried. I want to make her proud. Like, I'm not really worried about whether or not she's going to make me proud. Like that ship sailed. Dude, I'm so proud of that kid,
Yeah. I remember you tweeting about that. And I was like, that's kind of been my mentality as a parent too, is that I want, I would much rather my kids don't have to do anything to make me proud. You know what I mean? Like that they are just just being themselves. Like, you know what I mean? It's like a parent thing.
I do.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. So, yep. I just want to be the kind of person that they can look up to and the kind of person that they can be like, yeah, that's my mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that type of person, I think, and using my own view of the world, I appreciate and am proud of people who are fighters, who are willing to get in the trenches and duke it out and for what's right, to actually stand up for it and put your own ass on the line. That's what would make me proud of another person. So that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. And especially and especially in this climate right now, people who are willing to speak out against the official narrative, people who are willing to do that fight, you get slandered and smeared and
doxxed.
Yeah, doxxed, and they will go to just the most unbelievable lengths to shut you up or discredit you or whatever. And it's incredibly difficult, and it's a little bit isolating at times, which is why I'm so glad that we have like this little family, because I can't imagine trying to do this without some kind of a support group, or like, the people who follow me on Twitter who will go to like war for me on Twitter. You know what I mean?
I have people like that too. I'm so pumped about them.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say, back to the conversation about kids. The hardest part, at least for me, is trying to find words to explain to them what is happening without trying to introduce terms like genocide to a city.
Right. Without traumatizing them.
Right. So I came up with the way to describe, because at the time when all this started, Chelsea was in jail too, 2 years ago almost. So I was telling my daughters that Batman and Robin had been captured by the Joker and his minions, and that normal people had to go save Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to do with like these long weekends away, and why I had to go on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and things like that. So
that sucks.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to explain to kids. It really is hard to explain. Like, I remember
have to come out with like a series of books, like how to talk torture to your toddler.
Yeah. Like, at what age do you tell your child the truth about 9/11? And that's a serious fucking question.
What is
in what grade do they sit down to watch Loose Change, like the weird condom videos that they do in the 5th grade? Like, when does that?
No, bro, that shit's like 1st grade now.
Yeah, like when does that collectively happen? Like, when can we say, okay, at 15, we're going to tell you the truth about 9/11 in Vietnam?
If you're old enough to learn about Santa Claus, you should be old enough to learn about 9/11.
I have to tell you that I could speak for myself, but I think that it probably applies to a lot of other people, maybe all other people. I don't know if this is just a human trait or what, but I was told my whole life that you don't question things, you just do what you're told, and this is a bullshit narrative that gets pushed in, through the authority. Like, parents are an authority, so they're not going to circumvent or whatever their own authority with their own children. So they make it into this hierarchy of like, I'm the boss, you do what I tell you to do. And then that's it. You don't question me. And the same thing goes for teachers and schools and, whatever, right? The student is the student, the teacher is the teacher. You don't question. You just buy it, right? And of all things, George Carlin, in like one of his 90s comic things when I was in my early teens, he said, it's not enough to teach your children how to read. You have to teach them to question what they read and question everything. And
so
that made me feel good. I was like, wait, so all this bullshit, I could actually I could call this stuff bullshit, and it's bullshit. And
I was really lucky because my mom wasn't really like,
it enabled
I had to listen to her. Like, if she like grounded me, you're grounded, don't question me, you're grounded. But I was a lot like, I think I've also always been an atheist, and it's partially because of that, because growing up I wasn't forced into religion. And when I asked about it, my mom was like, well, I mean, if you want to go to church, we'll go to church. If you want to go to a synagogue,
I have a funny story about that, but Steve,
I mean, like, it was, I was allowed to ask questions and decide for myself.
Real quick, just on the show the other day, we were talking about, on Slow News Day, we were talking about, like, when your kid turns like 11 or 12, you need to give your child Class Clown by George Carlin. This is his first album. It's got the 7 words you can't say on television on it. You need to follow that up with Sane Man by Bill Hicks.
Yes.
And sort of ease into that secondary period of Carlin's comedy too, that you were just talking about.
That's when I really, really loved Carlin.
And then you can hit it with Bill Hicks's Revelations to kind of put the cherry on top of that. But I mean, really, these are like my teenager right now, or at least the last time I saw him, he's in there, watching a Chappelle stand-up show on Netflix, and I mean, this is the shit that, like, I really, kids need to be exposed to this level of comedy, to the things that, like, if you haven't seen The Bird Revelation, the Dave Chappelle special, where it's just him in the belly room at the Comedy Store, he's on a chair, he's in a hoodie, he's smoking cigarettes, and he's like just working some shit out, and he does the whole the Iceberg Slim story. And I mean, like, if your early stages of teenager isn't watching that, dude, that's your fault.
Yeah,
that's your fault. I had to get a friend of mine came over who was a few years older than me when I was like 11 years old. Walkman, right? I'm 11, so it was 89. Okay. And he puts headphones on me and just presses play, and it's Class Clown. And I'm like, okay, this is mine now. I knew two things immediately. I knew that I was never going to take my teacher's word for anything.
Yeah.
And I knew that my parents were going to beat the shit out of me if they found me with a George Carlin album on my Walkman, Yeah. So I didn't have that relationship with my folks where it was like, question this. I had the opposite relationship with my folks where
Carlin,
it was,
Carlin actually talks about that. He's the one that brought that up on one of his comedy, one of his 1 hour specials, was talking about, undermining the parents' authority. Like, they don't want to teach their kids to question everything, because that means it'll question them, and then it undermines their authority, But like, I think if we could just do that, just get the goddamn kids to question everything all the time.
So as a parent who's done
that, critical thinking.
As a parent who's done that, there's a fine line between question everything and just being a dick. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean.
So you gotta be able to take it to the next step where, okay, you've questioned this, let's discuss it, because just saying why ain't enough. We're trying to go somewhere with this.
It's funny, but it I really don't get it, because I will. People think I'm such an asshole because I just don't let shit go. I just like when I get stuck on a subject, or I'm talking about a thing or whatever, and somebody tries to derail me, I'm like a cat. Like I'm just like, oh no, it's mine. I'm on this thing. I get so zoomed in, so focused on this stuff. It's really funny, but like, but no, and stand-up comedy generally is, I think those are the last truth tellers that we have. They're the only people that tell the truth anymore, you know. And so Carlin, I don't think was ever wrong, you know, about any of his social statements or anything like that. I struggle to find one incorrect thing. I've never found one. But like I got introduced into it with Eddie Murphy, like Delirious, I think it was my first watching a full special.
We reference that so much.
I fucking died. Like I was dead. I was a dead person.
Eddie
I was
Murphy,
like, I don't know, I was 9 years old or something.
Before Eddie Murphy sold his soul to Disney, he was one of the funniest guys on the planet.
And you couldn't do Delirious nowadays. You couldn't go on a stage.
You can't do Bill Hicks's shit these days.
Bill Hicks.
George Carlin would be canceled now.
For sure. George would be done. But like my favorite ever Bill Hicks bit is his whole thing on marketing. It's like, if you're in marketing, kill yourself. And then he just has this like long pause. Everybody's laughing, and he's like, no, I'm not kidding. Suck a tailpipe, borrow a gun from a Yank friend, and kill yourself. There's no reason for you to exist.
There's no joke there. End your unholy existence. Kill yourself.
That's right.
Kill yourself.
So good. To me, that's just it's so. You know, they always say that like the stand-up comics that are best, it's all about delivery. Nothing he said is in and of itself funny. Right? If you read it back, like transcribed in a newspaper.
That's so true.
If you're in marketing, kill yourself. There's no reason for you to live. Like, that wouldn't be funny. That's not funny.
No.
I mean, I've got a particular way of reading things, but
you're Christopher Walken.
I saw that. And let's say, like, even the hipster weekly newspaper here in Santa Cruz, The Good Times, if I saw that in The Good Times and they were presenting it as something offensive, you know, I'd be like, holy crap, this is hilarious.
Yeah, that would be very funny.
But
I need to go find this.
Like a gallows humor kind of crew. Like we all find very dark things funny.
What I can't wait for is like the NSA or FBI or CIA or whoever decides to listen to us to release the phone transcripts of us in vehicles together when we're in Washington, D.C. Because it is the darkest, funniest car rides you can imagine. But if it was ever read out in dry pan, you'd be like, these people are terrifying.
This is such a problem for me, too. Like, because I'm a politician, and, like, you're not supposed to say stuff. Like, there's certain stuff you're not supposed to say, and I just think it's so goddamn funny.
Fuck
that I can't help it. And like, I'm always going to say the funny thing. Even if, you know, even if I have to immediately apologize, right? I'm going to say it because it came into my head and now you have to hear it. You know, now it's yours.
Yeah, I lack a filter. So that's a problem.
There's nothing stopping the thoughts in my head from coming out of my mouth. I really have to I'll pull back sometimes, but it's mid-sentence.
But I'm on Twitter.
He does that all the time.
I really do. I'll get going and they'll be like,
all the time.
No.
He'll start a story and then he'll be like, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I've done that so many times in different company where I start a story and I'm like, ooh.
In a post 9/11 world?
Nope.
In a post 9/11, in a Patriot Act America? I'm pretty limited on the stories that I can tell without having to throw the word allegedly around so often. It loses all value.
Yeah, but like this really happened on my Twitter. What was it? I sent out a story because it gave me the chills, like the willies, you know. The story was this woman was trying to get out of a parking garage at like 11:30 at night, and it was an unmanned parking, you know, attendant thing where you just put your card in and then you drive out. And she dropped her card, and when she reached down to get it, her car rolled forward and the door smashed her cranium between the door and her car and killed her. And they found her at 5:30 the next morning. Like, and I read this story and I was just like, oh, like every part of it was just so gross and made me so uncomfortable. So I tweeted out, like, you know, because I want to ruin everybody else's day too. And and one of my followers replies with a GIF of a woman driving her car, and it says "goddamn woman drivers" or something like that. And she's like running into stuff, and I understand that that's sexist, and I understand like, but that's a real thing. That's like, you don't have to believe that stereotype to know that it exists, right? And so I laughed. I did like a laughing emoji afterward, and then I just caught shit from like, you know, all these women who are like telling me that you can't just, you're turning this into a misogynistic, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, it was just a joke. It was
I'm a woman, I'm a good
bunch
driver.
Of broads to get that way too, huh?
Yeah.
I'm a woman, you know I'm a good driver, like, and that's fucking funny.
My wife is an amazing driver. She drives a 2003 Subaru WRX with a manual transmission. She drives like a bat out of hell. Like, I don't actually believe that women are bad drivers, but I'm aware that is the thing that people say or believe. And so in being aware of that, that was a funny joke. That's all it is. You don't have to endorse it. And they got madder at me over that shit than like they would have gotten, like half of them probably voted for Joe Biden, you know, and he raped a lady. So I'm like, you know, where are your standards here?
Yeah. And he's a war criminal. That's what cracks me up, is that these people on Twitter are like calling me a Nazi and a fascist, and they voted for fucking Joe Biden, a segregationist who wrote the crime bill.
Yeah.
Like, what?
He's a shitbag.
So I kind of want to do the shot and the chaser with all of these press groups, and Steve, it would be great if you stuck around for this. With all of the press groups writing the open letter, not to Biden, but to the DOJ, and then like 24 hours later, the DOJ coming out and being like, yeah, no. I do want to do that. I want to remind everyone, I want to apologize to everyone in advance for the fact that I'm going to remind you that we just launched our GoFundMe. We're going back to Washington, D.C. We have some elaborate shit planned, and we're really going to need your help for it. So the GoFundMe is up. I will put the link in chat again. And
also, please come to D.C. if you can. Please come.
Let's see if we can't pop the GoFundMe's cherry during the broadcast.
I'll go donate right now.
Let's see if we can. Let's see if somebody besides one of the hosts of the show can pop the cherry of this fundraiser tonight. Let's see if that's possible.
What? I don't count?
Misty Winston, you host the show.
Misty.
Well, so the other thing we're trying to do too, and I don't know how far we come, I just started talking to Alex about it, is getting local people together. Like, hey, I'm in this zip code, or I'm near this city, and helping them to then self-organize. And that's something that I'm looking forward to trying to do too. We called it like our little matchmaker type deal.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea of Action for Assange is not everyone can make it to a big protest. Not everyone has the ability to do it, but those still need to happen. So doing what you can with the time and money that you have is essential. So the hope is we can get little groups to start up and become mechanisms for revolutionary change in there.
Have you ever noticed that, especially when it comes to this subject, how attaching certain names like Assange or Snowden will trigger people to completely lose their mind. Whereas at the same time, you could talk about the principles of what they did, and you could just tell them that stuff, and they would be like, "Oh, that's a good thing. We need people to do things like that." But then you say their name, and they're like, "Ah!"
Oh, you even have people like in the independent media that will dig in. Like anyone who has ever talked about the war in Yemen, the only reason we know about that publicly is because of Cablegate and other WikiLeaks releases. Yeah. But yet anyone that ever talks about the war in Yemen never mentions WikiLeaks. And that's a full spectrum thing. Anyone that talks about issues exposed by WikiLeaks generally ignores the name of them, which to me just boggles my mind.
I mean, as long as the information gets out, I guess it's probably fine, right? But you know, it doesn't really, though, does it? Like, not all of it, not enough of it. So, yeah, there is an inherent bias there, though, and they work really hard to create that thing, and it's really frustrating because, you know, I think I see the world clearly. I know Steve was talking about psychedelics. I have partaken before. I don't anymore, but I did a couple times, you know, a decade ago or whatever. And it does change how you see things. And I see the things that are happening to the people in Yemen. I see the things that are happening to even Julian Assange himself, but like to prisoners, the fact that we inside our country, we jail more people than any other country in the world. You know, all these things. And I see this as something that takes away some of my humanity, like that I'm giving something up because all these other people are suffering and I'm playing some role in that. I'm playing a role as a taxpayer, maybe. I'm playing a role as a voter, you know, and as a candidate, I guess. But, you know, I think that it's true of everybody. I think that we all lose some part of our essential humanity. I don't know the right way to put it. I'm not a spiritual kind of guy, but I really do think that's true.
Well, that's part of my opposition to the whole $2,000 check thing, because everyone knows our government's funded by blood money. Like, we have a woman that just got put into power whose literal words are, we need to use the money from the countries that we engaged with to pay down the debt to continue engaging in the world this way. It's not a perfect
and quote, she's in charge of the budget office now.
Right. Yeah. Neera Tanden literally said we need to
I don't think she's been approved yet.
We need to take the spoils of war so we can continue.
Yeah, she said that about Libya.
Yep. Yeah. And now the idea is take the spoils of war and give it in monthly checks to the people of America.
Okay, so wait, here's the Assange quote.
Hey, it's socialism.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, here we go.
Assange quote.
Every time we witness an injustice and do not act, we train our character to be passive in its presence and thereby eventually lose all ability to defend ourselves and those we love.
That's right. I think that's exactly right. But like, yes. I look at it, I posted this on my Twitter a while back, so it's not new to anybody who saw that. But, you know, there's a couple of pictures that I don't show people typically that I have in my phone, where as a candidate for office, I am tasked with doing a lot of things that require a lot of effort, like canvassing neighborhoods and things like that. And there's some days you just don't want to do it. Like, you're just tired. You walked 6 miles yesterday and, you know, you don't want to do it again. And on those days, I look at these pictures in my phone, and these pictures are children and babies that were killed by errant U.S. Airstrikes in Libya, in Syria, in Yemen, etc., or allied airstrikes. And I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, okay, I have to get up. Like, I have to get up and I have to go do this, because it's not just about me. So if it was just about me, it'd be a lot easier just to quit, you know? But like, I saw this picture. I have these pictures on my phone, and one of them is this little girl. Well, I don't know if it's a boy or girl, but a little baby in a onesie that's covered in cement dust from this airstrike, as, you know, presumably dead, because it's just in kind of the fetal position, but just laying there in the middle of a bunch of dirt, a bunch of dust. And it occurred to me one day that looked exactly like my daughter. From the angle that it was shot, it looked like it could have been my daughter. And I had shot a very similar shot on my phone like a few days before that of her in her crib in almost exactly the same position. And it's just, you know, it's not okay to let that stuff happen. It's not. And you know, everybody's so like Carlin said, you know, everybody's at the mall scratching his ass, picking his nose, taking his credit card out of his fanny pack and buying a pair of sneakers with lights in them. Everybody's so distracted by all this other bullshit that they don't pay attention to what is essentially, you know, it's our duty as human beings to do right by other human beings. That's the one thing that bonds all of humanity, and we can't do that because we're gonna, you know, I'm a Democrat for this, I'm a Republican, and it's just like, are you people though? Like, can you be human beings? Like, can you actually just think about this from the perspective of what it is to be a human being? Would you want that to be your child?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want that to be your child? And what would you do if it was?
Right.
What would you do? All these people that you call terrorists, and you know, I'm not saying they're good people. I'm not. But you know, another George Carlin quote. He says, if firefighters fight fire and crime fighters fight crime, what do freedom fighters fight?
Yeah.
But you know, these, you know, those people, whether it's true or not, they view themselves as freedom fighters because we're in their countries trying to take their resources. We're killing, you know, these things are happening. It's killing, you know, dozens of people at a time that are innocent. And you're going to make more terrorists that way. Like, that's just how that works. If somebody did that to my daughter, I would blow myself up in some place to get back at them if I had to. If that was my only recourse, I would totally do it.
Well, we have CNN and MSNBC literally calling for Trump supporters to be drone striked.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
we have these liberal bastions of truth
Yeah.
saying, well, Obama did great against Hezbollah. You know, it's 90% the wrong people. Why don't we just fucking do that against U.S. citizens?
I mean, I'll teach
Like,
them
that's
for being
fucking
born over
terrorism.
there.
Like, that is literal violence for a political
Literal
goal.
terrorism. There was the kid that gave a statement in front of the UN from Afghanistan who said that he can't even go outside on clear days where there's no clouds. He can't even go outside because that's drone weather, and, like, you know, he's afraid he'll get killed. That's terrorism.
Christ.
That's
Yeah.
terrorism. He's like a 13-year-old kid.
Dude,
You know,
the United States of America is the world's largest terrorist organization. Period. End of story.
And the thing is all of us, whether we call them on it or not, like, you know, we think we're all super smart in this group as 4 guys. We all know this. We're like, yeah, we get this. But, like, whether we understand something that other people don't or not, the reality is we all play a role in that. All of us do, and we need to own it. We all need to figure out how we can take ownership of our own government, because that's the only way that anything's ever going to change is that we actually take ownership of all the shit that it does. Our government is mostly terrible, and it's by design, you know, but it doesn't mean it can't be good. It can be, but it requires the people understanding what's going on and getting the hell involved, you know, doing something.
Yeah. We actually have a question in the chat. Jen Flute wants to know what's your opinion about lobbying in Congress, AIPAC influence on U.S. foreign policy?
Well, lobbying is, my opinion is we should have publicly funded elections. You know, there shouldn't be any money even allowed to come in. You shouldn't even be allowed to spend your own money on a campaign, you know, so that we could avoid rich people just buying their way in or whatever with their own cash. We need major campaign finance reform. But that doesn't happen while these 2 parties run the thing. It's just not going to happen because they're the ones that have to do it. And they are not interested. They get all the money they can from, you know, big pharma and big insurance companies and you know, the military industrial complex and, you know, banks and et cetera, et cetera. Like, the list is long, and they get a lot of money from and they're not giving that up. So until people are willing to put people into office who don't belong to either of those 2 parties, it's a pipe dream, to be honest. And as far as AIPAC, you know, I understand people's anger with Israel over their treatment of Palestinians and other things they've done. The USS Liberty, and there's lots of reasons to be mad at them. But the one thing that I will say, though, is that the one thing I have a good friend of mine, a really good friend of mine who's Jewish, and he explained this to me once, and it made a lot of sense. So I'm just going to relay it to you guys. When they talk about, because he's not for or against, he's for the ability to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel, and against the ability of the government to censor that, because they've been trying to do that. But his point is that there is, he believes, some anti-Semitism built into things like the BDS movement. And I was like, how can you say that? And the point he made was valid, which was that they don't do a BDS movement for Saudi Arabia or BDS. When you say BDS, it always talks about Israel, and we should have that on the table for all those regimes that treat people the way that those regimes do. To boycott, divest, and sanction Saudi Arabia and any of the other bad actors as well. But we only use that when it comes to Israel. So that's the only part of that really makes me uncomfortable. People like to focus on AIPAC and the BDS movement and all that stuff. I support BDS. I think that we should boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. But I also think that's a term that should be used and a strategy that should be used against the other bad actors that we're confronted with as well.
Fair enough.
Is that thorough?
If we could boycott, divest, and sanction ourselves.
Well, I mean, obviously that's part of it, but we're nothing if not hypocrites, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
I mean that in the nicest way, but all of us are to some degree hypocrites. So we just have to, find where that line, gets drawn is all, I think. Yeah.
Andrew, did you want to go back to, or maybe it was Steve that brought it up, the articles that we were at the
yeah, the whole news thing we were gonna do?
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you have news?
Okay. Okay.
I do. Before we get into the articles, though, I have some thank yous.
Yes.
Because we did have some people who threw some coin at the GoFundMe. So Anthony Scannell, Anthony Alicia, Todd Southern, Tara DeRosa, Bhavana Limworth, Tarot Man, and Anonymous. Thank you very, very much, man. We appreciate the hell out of it. Please share the GoFundMe if you can't donate to it, or if you can donate to it, please share the GoFundMe, because that makes a huge difference. And I know that a whole fuck ton of people are broke, and I'm sorry. And if we were self-sustaining, we would not have to ask you for money to get to Washington, D.C. But, if you can't donate, please share. If you can make it, please show up. That would be fantastic. We need you there as much or more as we need you to help get us there. But this is an article that came out yesterday. I was on the Critical Hour with Garland Nixon and Dr. Wilmer Leon this morning, talking about this particular piece here. And if you're not already, man, please go check out Garland's show. It's fantastic. Shout out to him and to Wilmer. But yeah, a 24 different press freedom and First Amendment groups signed an open letter to the Department of Justice, not to President Biden, but the letter organized by Freedom of the Press Foundation and signed by 24 groups, including Amnesty, the Committee to Protect Journalists, Human Rights Watch, Knight First Amendment Institute, which is that's like a $5 billion a year funded organization, and Reporters Without Borders, expressed profound concern about the ongoing criminal and extradition proceedings relating to Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, under the Espionage Act and the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. It continues, the indictment of Mr. Assange threatens press freedom because much of the conduct described in the U.S. government's indictment is conduct that journalists engage in routinely, and they must engage in order to do the work that the public needs them to do. Journalists at major news publications regularly speak with sources, ask for clarification on more documentation, and receive and publish documents that the government considers secret. In our view, such a precedent in this case could effectively criminalize these common journalistic practices. In addition, some of the charges included in the indictment turn entirely on Mr. Assange's decision to publish classified information. News organizations frequently and necessarily publish classified information in order to inform the public of matters of profound public significance. So that happened, and I'd like to get a couple of you guys' thoughts on just the route that they're taking here, and the appeal not to Biden or the White House, but trying to go through the DOJ. And I'm going to tell you what I told Garland, and then I'll open it up. And in my opinion, what this does is it puts the ball in the DOJ's corner like they had to do today, where they have to come out and address the media. And now the media has to respond to and report on this. And if nothing else, directly targeting the DOJ with this letter means that we've got a public conversation going on about it that we didn't have a couple of days ago. And I'll open it up to the rest of you before we get to the part where the Biden administration and the DOJ just kind of took a shit all over that letter.
So here's a saying that I use a lot, and I don't know if I came up with it. I might not have. But the quote is, "The Constitution can't protect you. It's just a piece of paper. It's we who are supposed to protect it." Right? And I think that's a big misconception with how people view that thing. They look at the Constitution like it's like, well, it says right there that we have freedom of the press. So obviously we have freedom of the press. It says right there that people, that you can't have, unreasonable searches and seizures and, whatever. So, I mean, it says right there, you get you have a right to trial and all that stuff too. Right. So, right. So, I think that's the first part, is that people need to start to understand that Constitution doesn't do shit unless we enforce it.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that people also need to realize that this isn't like a short-term battle. Like you have to be vigilant all the time, forever. There's always going to be forces at work trying to take away your freedoms. And so this isn't like, a spectator sport where you can like hang out and, occasionally take a peek in and make sure things are running smoothly.
I'm going to read you in just 1 second here. I'm going to read you a quote from John F. Kennedy. You heard of him, right?
Maybe. I don't know. It sounds familiar.
He's that bootlegger's kid, right?
Yeah, he's the bootlegger's kid. Here it is. It says, no one has a right to feel that having entrusted the tasks of government to new leaders in Washington, he can continue to pursue his private comforts unconcerned with America's greatest challenges and dangers. For if freedom is to survive and prosper, it will require the sacrifice, the effort, and the thoughtful attention of every citizen. In my own native state of Massachusetts, the battle for American freedom was begun by thousands of farmers and tradesmen who made up the Minutemen, citizens who are ready to defend their liberty at a moment's notice. Today, we need a nation of Minutemen, citizens who are not only prepared to take up arms, but citizens who regard the preservation of freedom as a basic purpose of their daily life and who are willing to consciously work and sacrifice for that freedom. The cause of liberty, the cause of America, cannot succeed with any lesser effort.
100%. Unfortunately, most people aren't willing to put in that kind of work.
Well, then we failed. That's how that goes.
Clearly,
ultimately, you get the government that you deserve, right?
Yeah. Well, some of us do. Some of us put in the work, and the rest of
as a whole, as a whole,
Yeah.
you know,
I get it.
as a whole.
I just get salty because, you know.
Me too.
You know.
I've blocked so many people on Twitter in the last 6 months. It's got to be 10,000 people.
I blocked 7 people a couple of days ago, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're a free speech activist, you hypocrite!" And I'm like, "Y'all, me blocking you on Twitter does not take away your right to free speech. I'm not that powerful.
God,
I'm not that powerful. Unbelievable."
How do you have to explain this shit
to grown ass adults?
Because they're perpetually outraged. They're angry all the time.
No,
and they have to find something to be mad about.
Yes, they hate me, and it just doesn't matter. I could literally, adopt all the dogs and cure cancer while rescuing orphans from a burning building, and they would find something to be pissed off about. That's just the reality.
You made an off-color joke once. You made an off-color joke saying, "What?
You're hoarding all the dogs from people of color, Misty. That's what you're doing."
Yeah.
Or some shit. There's
I'm
all those dogs.
When you rescued the orphans, you didn't prioritize orphans based on marginalized class of individual.
Damn it! I did
and
it wrong.
that's wrong.
Never adopt white kids is the point. I think we can all agree to that, right?
Yeah.
Never adopt white kids. I've never seen anybody adopt a white
I have to deal with. You guys have no idea the shit I have to deal with on Twitter. Well, some of you do because some of you help me out, but y'all, there are some really stupid fucking people on Twitter who have no idea I was like, do you not know what free speech means? Like, do you not even understand
there are
what
some
that
people
is?
on Twitter who are so dumb you think it's their job to be that dumb.
Yes. Well, I'm pretty sure it is some of their jobs.
Yeah. Like
because they're not. Did you guys see that? Okay, so now I'm like an Assange cultist, like I'm running a cult, and then I'm listening to Jimmy Dore because Max Blumenthal's on, and I'm like, cool. And I this whole time this cultist thing was being thrown at me, I'm like, this sounds like kind of familiar. Like, where have I heard this messaging before? And then Jimmy Dore shows it, and I'm like, holy shit, Neera fucking Tanden. Neera Tanden.
She's so
about
sweet.
how. I can find something about how all cultists are bad, but the worst are the Assange cultists. And now suddenly all of my trolls are using that same messaging, and I'm like, oh, that's a coincidence. Like, weird. I wonder how that happened.
I always just say well parroted.
Well, we had to correct the record in 2016. That infrastructure doesn't go away.
No,
right? They had an entire organization built specifically with the task in mind to redefine reality.
I want to do that.
Albright had a $1 million troll farm.
And I can't find the
public information.
Yeah,
everybody knew this.
Yeah.
And they memory hold it because Sally Albright didn't have anything to do with Russia.
Yeah.
We are very lucky because obviously with all the things that Russia was able to do, I mean, install a puppet into the White House. I mean, they are obviously superior people to us.
Lord Putin is very.
I will bow to my overlords in the Russian government if they're going to be this superior. They're this good. They're so strong and so smart. That, hey man, just come on over, take it over. I know you guys get free healthcare at least, right? In Russia, so let's get it over with.
For real, Lord Putin will take good care of you. Don't you worry. Real talk. But here's the tweet. Neera Tanden. There are many cultists on this site, but the Assange cultists are the worst. Assange was the agent of a proto-fascist state, Russia, to undermine democracy. That is fascist behavior. Anyone on the left should abhor what he did, not celebrate it. This is a lady who was like, hey, let's go bomb the fuck out of Libya so we can steal their oil so we can pay for bombing Libya.
There's so many things wrong with that statement. There's so many things. It's like you'd have to write a list down and go through them one by one. There's at least 6 red flags in that one bit. Like it's insane.
Like 2 sentences too.
I am honored that Neera Tanden finds me to be a despicable individual. Like that.
Yes.
Like because
and if you find yourself parroting her,
we're on the same playing field because
she blocked me.
That she
I'm blocked. I've been blocked for ages.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
being on her shit list means that we are on the right side of history.
No, yeah, you can be judged by the friends you keep and by the
Yeah.
enemies you keep, right? And
Yeah.
I want to be judged by the people that don't like me. I don't give, like, most of the people that don't like me are shitheads, so I don't
Yeah.
care, you know.
Yeah.
And frankly, I've always kind of been like that, like my whole life. Hey, I wanted to tell you something, Misty, on your story about growing up without a religion or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was, this is just going to be a quick story, but I just think it's funny and it fits in. When I was like 4 years old, 4 years old, I wanted to be a paleontologist. So my mom bought me all these books on dinosaurs, and I read, like, I knew so much about dinosaurs by the time I was like 4 years old. It was insane. When I was like 7 years old, my little ADHD ass was getting in a little bit of trouble, and my mom was like, okay, we need some structure here. So she decided she was going to take me to Sunday school. My parents didn't go to church. So, like, you know, my mom's a spiritual person. My dad was always kind of, he didn't find Jesus, I don't think, till he got cancer, you know? So it wasn't really a big thing. But so I went to Sunday school. My mom tells the story because I don't really remember it because I was really small. But I went to Sunday school, and then they were doing Noah's Ark in Sunday school. Like, you know, kids were making art about it, but they were answering questions, doing stuff about Noah's Ark. And I was in the back of the class. And now I want to be a paleontologist, so I know about, like, food chains and, you know, extinctions, because, like, dinosaurs. I once asked my mom at 4 years old from the back of the car, I said, hey, Mom, when we're here because dinosaurs all died out, right? She's like, yeah. And I go, so what's coming after us when we're gone? Right? My mom's like, what? Yeah, the robot is correct. But anyway, so I raised my hand in the back of the room. They're talking about Noah's Ark, and I was like, you said that two of every animal go on the boat, and then they all get off the boat, and then like that's where we get all the animals we have. I said, but if there's only two gazelles, lions eat gazelle. So once they eat one gazelle, there's no more gazelle. Right. And I'm like, I don't understand it. And so she kind of poo-pooed it and whatever. And then I raised my hand again. And by the third time, she kicked me out. So my first and only attempt at going to church as a child was at Sunday school, and I got kicked out.
Nice.
For just asking general questions as a 7-year-old that I just didn't understand. Like, I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Yep. Yeah, Ricky Gervais actually has a really funny story about that too, about how he like asked a question, and like his brother was in the room or something, and his mom was like, shh, don't, and he was like immediately like, wait, if I can't question this, like and that's what made him realize that it was all bullshit. And it was like, you know.
Yeah,
so,
but like, you know, imagine if we all had a good bullshit detector, like if our whole country did.
Oh,
like, imagine how different it would be, you know?
That would be good.
Yeah. Instead, we have Tucker Carlson slamming loose change live on air and calling for it to be removed from the internet.
When was that?
That was like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
No, really? It was a little bit, wasn't it? I thought it was in before. I thought it was before DC.
I don't know. I just remember I yelled in the camera and you got mad at me for it.
Hey, you want to know my opinion about 9/11?
Yeah, sure. Let's hear it.
I subscribe to the idea that the more people that need to be involved in any conspiracy in order for it to have happened or whatever, and to say nothing, like the more people that need to be involved and then to never tell anybody, the less likely it is that it's like an inverse, likelihood that it's true, the conspiracy theory, whatever the conspiracy theory is. And I think that there are some that are true, but I think that on 9/11, probably, if you really get down to it, it was probably mostly a few people at the top of the government that knew what was going to happen. Because I don't buy into the bomb thing, bombs in the buildings. I was trained as a firefighter, and we were taught about collapse and stuff like that with steel buildings for heat and whatever. But like, I think that the way that the intelligence community and everybody else turned the other way and let it happen, and the way that Bush responded when he, on video, when he was told that, that there had been a terrorist attack and all this stuff. I think more than likely it was probably just a few people at the top of the government that just knew a few people at the top of the Saudi government or wherever that, just kind of like, hey, just hang on, something's coming and we'll take care of it. I think that's probably it. It's kind of along the same lines as what's been proven about Pearl Harbor, which is that the U.S. government embargoed oil against Japan to force them to attack the U.S. And that was their excuse to get into the war in the Pacific and in Europe. So, kind of along those lines is FDR didn't necessarily know where the attack was or what was going to happen, but he knew one was going to come. So that's how I kind of feel it probably happened. Which I know probably goes against what you're talking about, since you're talking about loose change.
I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know. All I know is that the official story is bullshit. No.
Yeah,
question.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
It just harkens back to the need for transparency.
Yes.
To know what actually happened.
Of course.
Not to even be fed a story, but to just be given the factual information to allow us to digest.
Like when Trump got into the White House, he was going to release all the stuff about JFK. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And then that didn't happen.
No,
trust the plan. We're fighting the deep state. Trust the plan.
Trust the plan, you guys.
Donald Trump spent 4 years as a dick tease. And people were like, no, but next time it's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Next time he's really going to do it.
Well, that's how that works, though. Like, that's why,
Yeah, no, he's arguably the most successful dick tease on the planet.
Yeah, but that's what they all do. Like when you get into especially the presidency, because it's set to a term limits so you can only be president twice now. Because of that, the first term never gets anything done. They don't want to even try, whatever. It's all about promising for the second term because you want to get reelected. Yep. So you can't do shit in the first term because if you do it in the first term, you can't run on doing it for the second term.
Right.
That's the whole game. And Donald Trump, he understood it right away.
Well, and the funniest part about that is your second term is entirely devoted to the servitude of the permanent state.
Yeah, and your donor class that put you in office.
People don't understand this when they make that argument. Well, because they did this for Obama to death. Yeah. Just wait till that second term, and this will happen, and this will happen, and this pony will shit rainbows and like everything. And and what happened when he got into his second term, he gave the national security state a giant present. He gave the banks another giant present. He gave the mortgage lending bastards another giant present.
But probably that has nothing to do with the $400,000 and $600,000 speeches he gives and the $16 million house he lives in the Hamptons and stuff. That's probably Martha's all completely unrelated.
It's Martha's Vineyard.
I'm so sorry.
Stomping ground correct there. Man, we're about facts on this show, Steve.
Yeah,
we are.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Martha's fucking Vineyard, a $15.9 million house that, for all intents and purposes, they'll spend what? 6 months out of the year in, maybe.
Who the fuck knows? I don't know their schedule. I would never leave home if I had a house like that.
The guy went.
You could go like waterboarding or whatever. Water skiing with Richard Branson. Well,
I guarantee you they hunt people and waterboard them.
For sure.
On Richard Branson's island. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
The
probably
ultimate,
like teenage girls.
What is it, like the ultimate game or whatever?
Yeah.
Like hunting people.
Yeah. Wasn't Ice-T in that?
Deadliest game or some shit.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Wasn't that Ice-T?
I don't know. I haven't seen that. I don't watch movies. Remember?
You don't watch movies?
I have severe.
I don't watch movies.
This is like 92, 94.
Okay, so I was like 10. Okay.
So what about 94?
No, when that movie came out.
Oh yeah. I think so. Yeah, The Deadliest Game. I think that was it.
Yeah, I remember like 3 scenes from that movie, and that's it. I did like one of the few is him like sticking lit cigarettes in trees.
Hey, this is a completely odd. This is an odd thing, but a thing I also wanted to bring up to you guys because of the fact that dark humor came up earlier. Dark humor, like people really don't get that right. One of those ladies that was yelling at me over laughing at that joke there, the dark humor thing, was she was super offended, and I tried to explain to her. I'm like, dark humor, at least for me, and I think for most people that I know, is actually because I'm so sensitive. I'm so sensitive to harm, like things happening to people. I'm so sensitive. When I was 7 years old, leaving daycare after dark in the winter time, so it was like 5:30, but it was already dark. I stepped on a snail on the sidewalk and cried all the way home. Like that's still who I am essentially. Like that's the core of who I am. So dark humor is a great way to get past the hurts.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism.
It's also why I'm an asshole.
People, right, of course, me too. But like people don't, like they associate it with not caring, and it's the opposite.
Yes.
The dark humor is not about not caring. It's about caring so much that you have to laugh at it somehow, because otherwise you'd kill yourself.
Tell people all the time, if it wasn't for the jokes, the show would be just us screaming for like hours.
I
really, we got like 10 minutes left before we normally break, and I really do want to get to like the shit show that was the DOJ's announcement earlier today.
That's what we were talking about. Okay, go for it.
Do that and pull it up.
That's important.
Going to go to Kevin Gastola's article.
Good Kevin. Yay.
The good Kevin.
We love good Kevin.
So the Justice Department under President Joe Biden plans to continue the case against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange that was launched under President Donald Trump. We continue to seek his extradition. Justice Department spokesweasel Mark Raimondi told Reuters days before February 12th, the deadline for the U.S. government to submit its grounds for appeal. The statement represents a departure from President Barack Obama's administration, which declined to prosecute Assange. Justice Department officials were reportedly concerned about the threat it would pose to press freedom. On January 4th, British District Judge Vanessa Baratzer rejected the U.S. government's extradition request and concluded Assange's mental condition was such that it would be oppressive to extradite him to the U.S. She accepted that Assange would likely be imprisoned at a supermax in the U.S. under special administrative measures and would find a way to commit suicide. I'm satisfied that in these harsh conditions, Mr. Assange's mental health would deteriorate, causing him to commit suicide with the single-minded determination of his autism spectrum disorder. That's a real quote from a legal decision in 2021. However, the Biden Justice Department plans to contest the judge's conclusion that Assange should not be extradited because he would likely commit suicide. Just one day ago, a coalition of civil liberties, press freedom, and human rights groups, including all the ones we just covered, signed a letter demanding that the Biden Justice Department drop the charges against Assange. Let's see. The coalition noted former Justice Department spokesman Matthew Miller, a Biden supporter, told the Washington Post in 2013, the problem the department has always had in investigating Julian Assange is there is no way to prosecute him for publishing information without the same theory being applied to journalists. That's because he's a journalist, you fucking moron.
Literally what journalism is.
Right.
Let's kind of scroll down here a little bit. Trump's last year in office, he signed a counterintelligence strategy document that lumped in leaktivists, hacktivists, and public disclosure organizations like WikiLeaks with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, and terrorist groups, which U.S. security agencies view as significant threats. This strategy document, which covers 2020 to 2022, sharply conflicts with Biden's assertion that U.S. government believes the free press is not an adversary. Indeed, it shows U.S. security agencies believe they should monitor, neutralize, and even target dissident media organizations that may employ practices pioneered by WikiLeaks. While the tone of the new administration may sound more polite toward elite journalists by refusing to abandon this dangerous political case, the Biden Justice Department is effectively signaling his administration is not at all that serious about press freedom, and what officials have to say are empty platitudes that should not pacify people aware of what is at stake if Assange is brought to the U.S. and put on trial.
So anyway,
yeah. Fuck you, Joe Biden.
But
I mean,
we knew, right? Didn't we know? We knew. Like,
yes,
I do. I want to say that. I want to say that we knew.
Yes,
because we did, and we didn't deter any of us.
No.
From taking 2 minutes out of our day to write a letter that was not going to be read by President Joe Biden to send it to petition him to drop charges against Julian Assange. That still happened. It did. That doesn't mean stop doing that. What this means, or what it should mean to me, is that if you were one of those people who had placed hope in the fact that because Obama didn't follow through with filing charges, with indicting, and with trying to extradite and prosecute, that Biden would do the same thing. What I don't want is for you to look at this like, oh, well, I fucked up, or this is a letdown, or this is a setback. What it should be is a clarion fucking call that direct action needs to take place.
Yes.
That's what it should be. It should allay any doubts that you may have had that there is some bright spark in the Biden team that is going to stand up for Julian Assange.
This should mean game fucking on. Bring it, bitches.
Yeah,
like,
it's exactly what that should mean. That should mean that whatever it is you thought you could do passively, you need to abandon for direct action.
Yeah.
I think
and I can't stress this enough, dude. I really, if I was allowed out of the country at this moment, I would be in a tent with some warm weather gear in front of Belmarsh Prison every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't because of my daughter, but
I can't either. I have kids, and
I mean, I have 3 kids too, but I would be doing that for their ability to have a free press in the future.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's and look, I mean, like, it would piss everyone in my world off, in my immediate family off. It would, and I would have to like deal with that every time. It already does, but I mean it.
Hey man, deal with it, folks. I am.
Yeah.
Just like,
so on the conversation about Biden saying, yeah, we're still doing it. I think a lot of the issue with the hopium is that people credited Obama's administration with not prosecuting him instead of condemning the Obama administration for the grand jury, for the prosecution of Chelsea Manning, for not
pardoning any or all the whistleblowers,
Right. When it should have happened then. Like, it should be, Biden shouldn't even have to do this because it should have been done in a sane world by Trump or by Obama. But instead, we have the administration of, we tortured some folks, and we're not going to look back at the crimes of the past. We're going to look forward. Like,
you know what I fantasize a lot about? I fantasize about like a Rick and Morty version, like a different version of the United States. Like, I wonder how many different versions there are before you get to one that's actually got like where they talk about liberty and justice for all, and they actually mean it. Like, I wonder how many universes away we have to go before we find.
Oh man, that's a lot.
That
weasel fucked us.
But it's not just him. But yeah, like it's just. But yeah, I mean, honestly, and I've told this before, but Barack Obama is the one that radicalized me because I gave him $500 in 2008, which was not money I really had at the time, because I thought he was going to fix healthcare, and he gave us that pile of shit that he gave us.
My
And
story's
by 2012, I didn't even vote. I was like, "Fuck this! What am I doing? I'm picking between white Obama and black Obama. Like, what do I give a shit?" This guy Romney did Romney Care and his thing. They both want to bomb the same country. He's like, what do I care? Which one of these guys is president?
Yeah.
that was a
To be
similar.
fair, one of them did wear magic underpants.
Barack Obama wears magic underpants.
And the other one
the other
strapped
one.
his dog to the roof of his car.
So our tech guy is going to strangle me if we don't rap.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, Sleepy.
All right.
Hey, I really, really like this. Can I say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no.
No.
And if you want
No.
Steve and Misty to like come back onto the afternoon show on Slow News Day next week.
Yeah, all right.
Fucking rock out.
Yeah, I'll do whatever. I do whatever. I got a lot of words. They come out. I get them. They fly out of my face.
Yeah.
We relate.
The only reason I'm not inviting Andrew is because I know he can't make it.
No, I can't make it.
I just want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not excluding anyone, okay? I don't need your hate in my fucking mentions, assholes. I
get
don't.
enough. Leave me alone.
Yeah,
so-
Steve, please let everybody know
Yeah,
where
let
they
me
can
tell
find
everybody.
you, how they can support you, all that kind of stuff. And thank you. Thanks for hanging out for the full 2 hours, man. I appreciate it. It's wonderful.
I mean, I have fun talking shit, so it works out. But
It's the right room.
But so my website's voteforcox.com. I'm rebuilding that now, so all this stuff up there is old, but it's still all relevant. I have over 30,000 words of policy there, so you can go in there and dive in and see where I stand on almost everything, and in as much detail as you want. But the overriding point is that I don't believe that we're actually going to get a representative government until we start kicking both of these parties out of office. I think that we can do that with my district, and then with more, and then once we get, I don't know what the number will be, 10 or 15 or 20, I don't know, independents in there. I think we can actually force them to change, because we can control votes and things like that, and we can actually force one of the parties to change their behavior, and start working for the people again, or it for the first time, but start working for the people instead of their big moneyed interests and stuff. So I, like you guys said, I know times are tough, but I did this on $500 last time, and I got 4.8% of the vote. It was like 8,300 votes on $500 that I got to spend for promotion.
That's great. That's awesome.
And the other two that beat me, one Republican, one Democrat, each spent $600,000. I spent $500. So where I'm going with this is that this might be my last time doing this, because I have a daughter, and I got to start thinking about where I'm going to move her to, onto a commune in the middle of nowhere where we can hunt for food or whatever. If this shit doesn't start to get turned around, like I've got to find a plan B and take her somewhere, because this is not working out here. But in this case,
That's my plan A.
For the next 2 years, I am committed to at least one final run, because I need to raise a good amount of money this time, because I think if I raise $150,000, I think I get into the general election and the jungle primaries here. I think I can do that, and no matter who I'm facing off against in a general election, I can win, because I'm a pro-gun libertarian leftist. So if I'm up against a Democrat, I can appeal to the gun owners, and that sort of thing. And if I'm up against a Republican, I can talk about Medicare for all and all the other stuff that I go on. But I can beat anybody, and and I think the time is right now for an independent. So I know times are tough for everybody. It's even tough for me. We're having a rough time too, but. If anybody has anything they can spare, I have a link in my bio on Twitter, or if you click on the How to Help button on my website, which is voteforcox.com, you'll be taken to my crowd pack there where you could donate. But my thing is I'd really love it if people would just donate like $5 a month and set up a recurring theme. So that way I'll know how much money I have to spend for promotion things as the months go on. And it doesn't really hit anybody that hard, hopefully. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for is people doing like a $5 a month thing and just letting it ride until this thing's over. But I really do believe we can win. I really, really believe we can do it. And it's not hyperbole. Like I was a motocross racer growing up. So like everything's about winning. Like, you know, I don't take loss as a like, oh, well, I tried. Like, no, it pisses me off and I want to win. So, you know, but I'm not going to sacrifice my integrity to do it, you know, because ultimately I need to be able to look myself in the mirror every day and like what's looking back at me. And I want my daughter to be proud of me and the person I am too. So, you know, I just want people to know that like, I really do believe we can win. And I want you guys to jump in behind me and let's get this thing going. We can do it. Stop putting all this money into these goddamn Democrats that are just going to go in there and do the same shit that the person they replaced did. You know, like this is nonsense. Like spend the money where it can actually go to some good. And right now I think that I might be the only game in town because I don't think any independent got 4.8% of any vote in the 2020 election.
So please hang out because after we wrap, we'll still be chit-chatting for but my name's Andrew Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman. You can follow us on
I just
Twitter.
got double jazz hands.
You did it. You got double. Apparently, I am us too. At action_4 Assange. The thing to remember, though, with money in politics is it's kind of like the NBA. All you have to do is be tall enough.
That's right.
Have enough to compete. You don't have to be the tallest.
Nope.
You just have to be tall enough.
If I could do 4.8% on $500, I think I could win on 150 grand, where they're still spending 600. I think that, you know, relatively, but you still, the truth is the way that this is all structured, we shouldn't have one representative for 800,000 people, but that's what it is. And in order to reach 800,000 people to get elected, you have to have money. Like you have to have money to get the message to them. That's the only way. So, you know, it's a necessary evil at this point, but, you know, my goal is to upend the whole circus once I get there.
Misty C.
Andrew? Oh,
I did two.
Are you done? I know you did two jazz hands, but I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about. Okay, good. Okay, so anyways, I'm like, okay, good. I'm Misty Winston. You can follow me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust.
You are also one of my favorite accounts on Twitter. Like I absolutely, I struggle to find something to disagree with you about. So I'm working on it.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find something.
I'll find something.
I don't even agree with myself most of the time or all the time. Yeah. So anyways, you can follow me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I have another show called Facts on the Ground with Jesse Zerwell. We actually just did a really important interview with Robbie Yeager. There's a massive pipeline spill in North Carolina that nobody's talking about. So go check that article out. Follow Robbie on Twitter because that is, you know, a pretty big story that's getting zero coverage, and he's going to be updating it as the story develops. Yeah, thanks to everybody who's in the chat. Thanks to anybody who's going to be donating to I Love Cox too. Thanks to everybody who's donating to the DC trip. You guys are amazing. Don't donate if you're in a rough spot. Like, don't put yourself out. Yeah,
for sure. Same for mine.
Yeah, we'll figure it out somehow. We don't want anybody to, you know, put yourself in a bad spot. So yeah, but thanks everybody. And please, if you can make it to DC, please come hang out. I would love to meet you in person. I know all of us would. And this one's gonna be fun. I think we're amping it up a little bit. So yeah, if you can make it, please make it. And I think that's it.
Thank you for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
That's a lot of pressure. It's hard to amp up. Having cake outside of the
I host a show called Slow News Day, which you should be watching on the Rock Pen, because I have no idea why YouTube lets me have a channel at this point, and it's only going to be a matter of time, because we're not slowing down on covering the kinds of things that YouTube doesn't want us to cover. But if you haven't, go make your free Rock Pen account. If you dig the content, you can support the show. It's $9.99 a month, and you get everybody's premium content on the network, including Facts on the Ground.
Yay! Thanks for that.
And thank you to the people who have contributed to the GoFundMe during the show. Thank you, Costello West and Stevie King, who also kicked in during the and Margaret Villa. We had 10 donors in like an hour, man. You guys rock. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It really is. It really is. And unfortunately, like that's what it's going to take too. The last time we had a GoFundMe, they shut it off unless we were live streaming.
Yeah.
And people couldn't donate.
Yeah, that was
It was
crazy.
super weird. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. If it does, then you should be able to donate to it anytime I'm live streaming too. So that should help because I think, I don't know. I'm not positive, man. We'll give it a fucking shot, dude. We'll figure it out. At any rate, man, thank you to Steve and to my co-hosts and to Sleepy Josh on the ones and twos. Big thanks to the people who did send it a super chat or a Rockfin tip, RW and the Convo Couch. There were a couple other people earlier who got buried in the freaking thing, and I'm sorry I missed that. Yeah, I love you guys. Good luck to us all.